Yes. Thank you very much for such a comprehensive background information that you have shared with us. It is really wonderful the way you sort of like told it, and you almost taken us to this level where we now know who you are. We are aware of the journey you traveled, how you came into contact with your life calling, which is beautiful because not everybody get to be in contact with their life calling, and we wish this could help people to do that. And now you are doing the job of your life. You are operating, you are functioning, and this is what defines you. So let's just talk about how did you arrive at this decision, and what did it take for you to find yourself located at this hospital? You gave your unit this name, and just take us through the day in your life as well.
So what happened was when I was doing my community service, I was based at Wentworth Hospital, and being a curious person, I was, as a student, if there was an opportunity to attend a meeting or be part of something, I would always take it because I enjoyed it so much. Look, I'm assuming this is why. But one day, out of the blue, I received a phone call from a surgeon who I do not know.
Yes.
Who says, "I've been given your name. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. I've just spent 2 years in the US learning how to do epilepsy surgery. It's not part of the neurosurgeons. It's not really something that they learn to do during their normal training in South Africa. And I want to set up an epilepsy unit in South Africa, but I need a neurophysiologist as part of my team. And you have come up. I can only, I tried to figure out in all these years what is it that made him choose me. And I don't think that there's any one thing. I think being around, asking questions, being seen, there's an accumulation of information, and there's this perception that you are someone who might be good at what they do, potentially.
Yeah.
But I was 23, 24 years old, and he said, "Look, if you're interested," we had a meeting, one single meeting. He said, "But if you're interested, I need you to go to America." I've never been overseas by myself. I've been overseas once before.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need you to go to America, and I need you to go and have a look and see how a place like this is run, how a system like this is run. And I need you then to decide if this is something you want to do. If you don't want to do it after that, it's fine.
Wow.
But you have to pay for it. And I had no money. I had absolutely no money. But I really knew.
That sounds like an angel. That sounds like an angel sent to you to deliver God's message.
To this day, I'm baffled. I can somehow join the dots as to how it is that he came around to making that phone call. But nonetheless, through a series of big borrowing and stealing, no stealing, but begging and borrowing, I managed to end up in America. And that was my first transformative experience in terms of, once you've seen that outside world, you just never look at life the same again. And it was also my first experience of when I came back. I'd never experienced that kind of freedom of body and space and safety and all those things. And yet, the moment I stepped my foot back in South African soil, I knew instantly that I loved it more than when I left.
Wow.
I just remember weeping. I weeping. I was 23, 24. I couldn't even articulate the feeling that I was feeling. I didn't know what was happening to me. But I knew it. Needless to say, I said to him, "I want to do this. I want to be part of this team." He said, "Great."
So that was after. So you spent 2 years in the US just finding out.
No, I didn't spend 2 years. He spent 2 years. So he spent 2 years.
Yes.
I didn't spend a lot of time there. So I just went there for a couple of months.
Yes.
Observing.
I see.
I didn't have.
Oh, okay. Now I get the point. So
fellowship.
I get the point. So he was in the U.S. and he was quite impressed by the way it's done, and he wanted it to be done same way in South Africa. And you were the person to do that, and you had to go and observe for a couple of months.
Exactly, and see whether it was something I liked, because remember, I hadn't been trained in that. So although I had the foundational degree and experience, I'd never done that specifically because it wasn't available in South Africa. So when I saw it, and I was part of those teams, and I loved the technology, and I said to him, absolutely, I want to be part of this team. And so when I came back, I walked into a room filled with boxes, just boxes of equipment, and I had to put it together.
Yeah.
I had these guys help me put the equipment together, formulate systems, put together protocols for nurses, and put together a practice. It was just phenomenal. I think in my first month, I had a patient in the unit for 4 days. There weren't even codes available. The medical aids did not have coding that I could even use to bill them.
Wow.
So it was just one of those things again that found me, and I think that for that first 6 months, I did not have a single day away from that unit.
Sure. Tell me, so you were in the U.S. for how long? 2 months?
Yeah.
And was it sufficient for you to have to observe and develop an idea how to get started back home?
Look, I think that it had to be because I didn't have a choice.
Yes.
And perhaps because of my personality and my tenacity and my technical ability.
Yeah.
And also my drive, I suppose, I was able to pull it off, but it was not easy. It was very, 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 very difficult. The guys in America were amazing. They helped me at every opportunity. They helped me design certain adapters and mechanisms and put together things that I needed that I couldn't get here, but we then modified it using our tech guys in Joburg to be able to do the same things using other equipment. So they were just phenomenal. So if I was going to tell anybody to do this and get experiential training overseas, I'd say 1 year. Undoubtedly.
Ideally, so 1 year.
Luxury of waiting,
And tell me, are you still in contact with the people in America?
No, I lost contact with them. The group that who taught me, there was a bunch of students coming in, but the group who taught me, those people were already in their 50s, late 50s and early 60s, and they retired within the last 10 years. So we maintained contact up until then, because it was only once I started to generate enough income to be able to go to international conferences that I was then able to maintain contact with everybody who taught me. So I continued learning, but maintaining contact only came when I was able to afford it, unfortunately. And now, obviously, with this kind of technology, it's different. But it was not available.
Yeah, it was difficult to stay in touch. And
we had to phone.
Yeah, so you also have then experienced something that not so many people get to experience in their lives, and that is to start an entity or organization or a unit from scratch.
From nothing.
So not even a design was there, it was just a concept. It was just somebody's desire. Now, I'm imagining you sitting and spending sleepless nights just figuring out how to get this thing started. Or did you sit down and go on a planning session and write down design concept, or how did it happen?
I think it was a little bit of everything. So I'm a bit of a MacGyver. So what I do is I can see a thing, I need a thing, and I can see another thing and modify it to make it work for the purpose I need it. So in America, in those units, you could just order, if you need these tiny little gauze squares that they use for a very specific purpose, you could just order the gauze squares. And they were made of a very specific fabric. Not only could I not order that stuff, but for the life of me, I couldn't even find that fabric. So I had to source by trial and error probably 24 different types of little gauze squares that would have
and I'm sure at that time Google wasn't as advanced as it is today.
There was no Google.
You wouldn't Google and get the answer. You had to buy those big catalogs and...
Absolutely. I mean, it was just crazy. But, you know, the pharmacy staff helped me. My nursing staff, just amazing. I mean, my day sister, who's my lead sister, she's been with me for 20 years. She's my right leg and arm and I think half my brain.
Yeah.
And she's just, she's just incredible. So she would say, look, why don't you try this gauze? Because this gauze doesn't have the cotton wool in the middle, so it won't interfere with the glue when we do that, and it was that sort of thing. And because of that, that transition from going pre-Windows to Windows.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, people don't know what it was like pre-Windows. But it's like, if you've had the luxury of knowing what it's like to not have computers, then to not have Windows, then to have Windows, and then to have the internet. I've been fortunate enough to go through that entire thing.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And I've had that opportunity in a way when it comes to my practice.
Wow.
I've been able to find all those little things that work.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been able to then curricularize it, put it into some kind of system, and now teach it to the kids. I put it into the curriculum and got the new students to be able to learn those things. They might not have been able to practice it, but they could at least learn the theory.
Yes. So will you say that technology is central to the way you operate your unit right now?
Look, the human contact for me is the salt that makes the meal. Okay, but the job on a practical, fundamental level is technology driven. Everything about it is run by. I've got my own little version of NASA in there. I call it. I think I've been having my own little fourth industrial revolution there for the last 15 years. But that marry between biology and technology and finding the sweet spot where those all come together.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And now somebody who, so you say that this wasn't existing in South Africa. Has the situation changed since you started your unit now? And I read somewhere in your profile where it says one of the only 3 such units in South Africa.
Yes, so there's another one in Johannesburg at Milpark Hospital, and then there's
which hospital?
Milpark.
Milpark, yes.
Hospital.
Yes.
There's one there. So I helped set up that unit.
Yes.
And the gentleman who ran that came and trained with me, and I went there and trained with them, taught them certain things. That was very nice. It was a lovely collaborative thing because one of the doctors who was part of our team relocated there. Her husband got a job at Wits as a prof, so she opened up that unit.
Wow.
And we then taught each other. So I taught him, see one, do one, teach one. And then another one in Cape Town opened up at Constantia Mediclinic. The sad thing is that these are all private facilities.
Yes.
But the gentleman who opened up the Constantia Mediclinic one, he's a neurologist who did I think he did a 2-year fellowship in epileptology in the States as well.
Yeah.
So he's highly, highly specialized.
Wow.
But those 2 units are run by doctors. Yeah.
I must say that if Nobel Peace Prize was given at the country level, I'm sure we will nominate you for the South African Nobel Peace Prize for such a special and important role, and the fact that you do it because you love it, and yet it's such a scarce service. It's amazing. Amazing. I'm glad we really... Now, so tell us the setup at your unit. So how many people work there? How do you train them? What type of people, support staff you bring in, and what qualification must they have, or what capabilities must they come with, and how do you make sure that they are up to the level of your standard of quality service that you deliver?
So I have to tell you that until January of this year, I've had one support staff member from a clinical perspective. I've always run that unit on my own.
Sure.
And that lady has only been able to do. She's had a qualification that does not allow her to do my work.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one role. She played an incredibly important role in my practice. She's a technologist. But what she did was she ran a part of my practice, but she didn't do any of the epilepsy monitoring.
Yeah.
And I did all of that myself. And I did it for, 21 years. And of course I've got my admin staff, I've got my nurses. So my nurses I've trained myself using other nurses. And I mean, you can do a PhD in this particular style of nursing in the US. So I trained the nurses, but I have no neurophysiologists working for me because I knew that the person would come to me and that I would know them when I saw them. And that just didn't happen for a very long time. But what happened was I started to become convicted towards the end of last year or the middle of last year, realizing that this is my child, this is my baby in essence. And if something were to happen to me, that thing would dissolve. It was the first time I really realized that. And I pay a lot of attention in terms of making sure every single time I leave this country that every bit of paperwork is accounted for and my will is up to date in a ridiculous level. And yet I had not assigned anybody to be able to take care of this thing that is so integral to my life. And I felt once you have that realization, I was very convicted about it.
Yes.
And it was funny because as that happened, then suddenly there's a part of you that's open, and because you're open to that, you start to see people who are available.
I'm very glad that came to your attention, because I always say to people that think of it. You are born and you inherit something. Whether you inherit it from your parents or from the country, or an angel like the one that visited you give it to you, it is an inheritance. Now you start dreaming big. You pursue something which appeals to you. So you come into contact with your life purpose. That something happens that takes you to your destination, which is the destiny. And that explains to you why we have the slogan, the mind, the journey, the destiny. So that destiny, you make it happen. It's a dream. You pursue it. But you cannot achieve that unless you are really working within your life calling. Now, the last part of that is that you are going to, that destiny once achieved, it becomes your legacy for somebody to inherit. If you did not think that way, you literally basically you're going to die with it. So you have pursued your destiny, you achieved your destiny together with the inheritance that your parents gave you, but you died with it because you never thought of it as something that remains behind and reminds people of the great work you have done, because there's no caretaker you are leaving behind. So therefore you died with your legacy, and I'm glad that you are saying, I actually came to a realization that if something was to happen to me, this thing will just collapse. Basically, your history will just disappear. Nobody will build monuments for you.
You said that so beautifully. You really summed it up so beautifully, and I think that maybe that sort of thing comes with age and a little bit of reflection as well, in addition to. But because I wasn't able to I don't have children, and after my sister passed away, there's this element, and my parents had passed away, and there's this. I just suddenly didn't have a purpose, not a purpose. I didn't have a thing that I would leave behind, a mark. And I never ever thought of that as something important. But I then reflected on, as you said, this thing that I love like a child. It's hard for me to imagine. It's like having a 22-year-old child that I've known. I know every cell in its body, and it's grown from a couple of boxes in a room to a fully integrated 3-bedded unit that runs 7 days a week. Sometimes my waiting list can be 3 months long, and people will wait to come because they know that. Because I can expand, I can do more, but I don't want to do more because I want to be able to sit next to the patient and listen to their stories, and I want them to feel heard and seen, and that doesn't happen when you get too busy. But to have that kind of work ethic and to maintain that character, you need to find people who have that same passion, and that same work ethic. And when you've known that, and you've known that team who works towards a common goal, my staff, I've got about 8 staff, they love me. I know they love me. And they do their best, not just because they love their work, but because they love me, because they know they're representing me. But I always try and remind them that we are a team, and that it's not. I cannot do this without them. And so then I started to think about them. So so it's not just me and the legacy and the unit falling apart, but what would happen to Nelly and Thelma and Trish and Jenna? What would happen to these people?
They will be devastated.
It's not okay. Yeah, and they wouldn't have jobs, so this would not be okay. It was like this one layer that I had completely neglected. But needless to say, along with that came a lot of stuff that's involved with business. I suddenly started to, it's very difficult to factor in, or it's been very difficult for me to factor in pure business fundamentals with medical care, looking after somebody. It's hard to make money from somebody else's pain. This is not an easy thing.
I know.
And so I've really had to be, I've had to look at the income that I get and the income that I generate and think of that as a gift that I've been given, and I need to respect it. And that the practice is something that I have been given to look after, and that I am really just I'm a person who's been given that thing to steward while I'm here. And I need to make sure that if I'm a good steward, every rand that gets given to me, I need to make the most of that rand. And every hour that gets given to me, I have to make the most of that. And I need to be able to hand it on to the next person and have faith and trust that they will love it as much as I will. But I also have to know when to let go.
How comfortable are you? How comfortable are you in making a shift and look at your practice as a business? I know you love being involved in doing the work, but something says to me that there is a crossing over that is required, especially based on the reasons we have just given. Those are no longer imperatives as a result of technical need. They are imperatives of a business continuity or organizational continuity and the survival of your legacy and the people that are part of it. That forces you to cross over and look at the situation where you're not only working in your business, if we call it a business, or in your practice, but you are working on your practice. In other words, the practice is functioning. Now, it needs somebody to look at it from a helicopter view and say, will this practice be here tomorrow if I'm not here? So, if the answer is no, it will not be, and then you say, what will be the implication to the stakeholders, the clients, the patients, the employees, the hospital, and the country, because it's only 3 of you. And then it starts saying to you that you have got a huge responsibility while you are still able to, and you are the only one who understands this, you created it, it has to multiply itself. Whether I'm emotional about it or not, I have to look at it as an operational, as an enterprise. It is quite I'm talking as a coach now in this conversation.
No, of course.
I'm like, us as coaches, we are trained to make you look yourself in the mirror and see what you have been avoiding to see.
Well, I must tell you, for some reason that I cannot even articulate, about the middle of last year, I started to ask myself these questions. And so I started to explore, how would I go about even starting to ask those questions that you've just told me about? And it was the very first time I came across this concept of a business coach. So I did some homework online.
Yeah.
And I came across a couple of options, but what I needed was, I spoke to only one individual, but what I needed was, I needed somebody to look at my business in it, because it's such a unique business, and especially it being medicine, I needed someone to look at my business in a very unique way, in a tailor-made way, and then tell me what they think. I couldn't handle the template version that I was given.
Yeah.
I was given a template option.
Yeah. And that's not coaching, yeah.
No.
That is like a mentoring or advisor.
Yeah.
Say, here, take this template, maybe it will help you. Coaching is a different thing, and little did you know that the day you feature on Commercial Radio Africa, the person that will be interviewing you is executive coach himself, and these things, that's how they happen. But anyway, I've just ignited that in you, and you and I, we might have a separate conversation. Today's was just to really escalate you to a position where many more listeners out there can hear this beautiful story that you are. And thanks to Shakil, things happen for a reason. And I think I'm starting to talk to you from the interest of the country. I mean, if somebody says to me, these are the only 3, this is one of the only 3, and then you are saying to me, but I actually contributed to the other 2. That's why I said you deserve a South African Nobel Peace Prize. Unfortunately, we don't have such a prize. But honestly speaking, we all love our country, and this type of stories are just so wonderful and so beautiful. But think about that question, we will explore it further. That you have the legacy not only on behalf of yourself, but on behalf of your late sister, your parents, and the country, and your brother that's out there. So the Bottchers have to come out. Absolutely.
And I want to learn how to be a businesswoman, not just a neurophysiologist.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just a neurophysiologist, but I need to marry the 2.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to learn. I can't read a book, businesswoman.
No, you need a coach. You need a coach, and I think definitely you found one here. So I'll get the office to handle that one. Otherwise, I'll be conflicted. My job is to interview you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and now I want to go back to you. You have created this unit, and we're trying to say to our listeners that people are not just machines, they're not just functionaries, they are people. Now, so what are the great dreams that you have now for yourself and for your organization and for this country and this unique profession that you have been given? It has been given to you through many ways.
So if I can just briefly tell you about what it is that I actually do. So as a neurophysiologist, what you do is you use highly specialized equipment to help treat and diagnose neurological disorders. I specialize in the brain and the spinal cord, not the rest of the nervous system, just the brain and the spine. I focus on the brain, but I do a little bit of spinal cord work in theatre. And then, in the Epilepsy Monitoring Unit, which is what we've been talking about mostly this evening, my job really is to help patients with difficult to control epilepsy. So epilepsy, the vast majority of people with epilepsy, if they take their medication, their seizures will be controlled and they can live a relatively normal life within the context of their clinical picture. But about 30% of those people, it doesn't matter if they take a bucket load of medication, they will continue to have seizures, sometimes dozens a day. It might be one a day, one a week, one a month. But it's incredibly disruptive to their lives, whether you're a mom, a dad, a husband, whatever. It interferes with your work, with your quality of life. So my job is to bring the people into the unit, and then for me to be able to find out exactly what type of epilepsy they have, and hopefully find a place that the epilepsy is coming from in the brain. We call that a focus. So if I'm able to I read their brainwave activity, put electrodes on the surface of their scalp, on the surface of their head, and I read their brainwave activity, and when they have a seizure, that brainwave activity is disrupted. It's like a little thunderstorm that goes off in a particular area of their brain. Certain parts of the brain are more prone to other parts to be what we call epileptogenic. And if you can find that focus, and using a couple of other tools at our disposal, we work up those patients to see whether or not they are candidates for epilepsy surgery. If we can find an exact spot and we are safely able to, we actually remove that part of the brain. So I liken it to finding that particular appliance in a kitchen that one day just causes the circuitry to trip so you've been using this kitchen and all of these appliances every day.
Yes.
One day you go in there, you put the lights on, you put the something on, the microwave on, and then you put the kettle on, and suddenly everything trips. You're not quite sure which appliance did it. Find the appliance and then do what you can. Either fix the appliance, remove the appliance, or check to see if it was the plug. So you just locate where it is, and then you either replace it or you take it out completely and you say, cover that socket, you don't use it anymore. And some of the epilepsy surgeries are more successful than others, but essentially what we need to do is we need to find out whether or not we can change their medical management in terms of different medicine, if we can do epilepsy surgery on them, or alternatively, they actually don't have epilepsy at all. They have something that looks like epilepsy, but because they've been misdiagnosed, the medication isn't working because they don't have epilepsy. They have something completely different. And so I'm able to then tease out the 3 different types of people from different groups, and then we normally do that by weaning them off their medication. So putting them in a really vulnerable situation and making their brains more susceptible to more seizures. So you can imagine how scary that is for someone who spends their life trying not to have a seizure. And if I tell you that I have some people who have been seizure-free for 22 years. Wow. We've done surgery on kids when they were maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I'm now being introduced to people that young man's getting married to, the woman that young man's getting married to. Or, it's just these beautiful life stories where, and I'm way more in touch with my patients than I was with my people from Cartonville. So I've been reminded about that.
Yeah.
But a lot of my past patients I'm in touch with still over all of these years, because you get to be part of their story. You know, if you do, there's that slogan, there's that saying that says the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. And I think that little extra is about just listening to what it is that they need, not telling them what you think they need, and doing whatever it is that you can to give them what they need, even if it's not in your best interest. And so I think that that's when you change lives, because they might leave without any medical change, but if they feel like they've been heard, their lives will be changed forever. And that for me is very, very important. So I try and surround myself with people who can also do that, and also make people feel like that when they're in the unit. Now, my biggest problem that I have is that this service is not available to people who cannot pay for it. And I feel, so what I used to do is I'm on the board of directors for the South African Epilepsy Foundation, which is a non-profit organization. But their main focus is people who are not on medical aid. They help people in the community, in the disadvantaged communities. And I used to, on epilepsy days and education days, I used to do talks for them. I refuse to do those anymore. I won't do them. I feel ashamed. I feel, perhaps that's not the right word, but the thought of telling somebody that there's a cure out there for them, but they can't have it because they can't afford it, or because we don't have the services available in our government facilities. I feel it got to a point where I felt too uncomfortable. So just to get back to your question, if I could somehow go out to the people, even if it's in a small way, and technology is getting to the point where, yes, I can't do video EEG. The stuff that I do in the unit, that main stuff, that big stuff, yes, I can't do that. They have to come to me. But there are screening things that we can do that will decide whether or not they can actually end up with me. It's a brief test. It's a brief version of what I do. Okay, and that's what my other employee does for me, and now I have 2 other employees who do that. But you know, some of those people, even in the government sector, they can travel 8 hours to come and sit at a facility and wait another 6 hours to have a test that takes 20 minutes.
Wow.
I find this, it makes me feel physically uncomfortable. So I used to have these fantasies of being able to perhaps hire a helicopter or a car or something and go once a day, once a month or somewhere, and just have all of these machines available, and then have people come to us, and then we at those places, and then we can actually service many people in that short space of time, as opposed to them coming all the way to Durban from, you know, northern Natal and deep rural areas.
So we have a challenge of the economies of scale.
Absolutely, in a big way.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, though, lockdown has done something very extraordinary that I didn't expect it to. And that is, I always tried to set up my unit in such a way so that it was running efficiently and the tech was as advanced as possible. But I tried very hard to always keep my work at work and my home home. So I don't bring work home. The only time I ever brought work home was if I was writing an exam.
Yes.
So when I was studying, because I've done a couple of years where I studied, or if I'm doing a big presentation at a conference or something and I need to polish up slides. Otherwise, I don't bring work home. But now we had lockdown. A couple of weeks ago, I had quite bad flu, so you can't be anywhere near patients. And I was able to connect to my office. So one of my staff could just connect me when I log on, and I was able to run my entire practice. I couldn't see the patient, but I was able to run my entire practice from this little office.
Wow.
And I've been doing this for 22 years. I was so shocked.
Wow.
Obviously, I didn't get well very
There you
quickly,
are.
but
There you
all the time.
are. You were thinking of physical solutions, and by the way,
Absolutely.
these are the stories that we are hearing from everybody in as far as how creative and innovative they have become as a result of the lockdown. Even us in our coaching industry, it is now actually enjoyable to coach using technology. I coach people from the US, from the East Africa, being here. And now, if you had not said that, in my mind, I was still fixated around, okay, this is really something that has to be done physically somewhere. So therefore, maybe we're not even talking about creating branches all over the country. We are actually talking about technological accessibility.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's just about accessibility. So you do need a specialist to be able to be there to, even if it's a technologist with a certificate, a certificate qualification. That's 1 year qualification.
Wonderful.
They can go there, they can put the gadgets on,
yes.
and I can connect and I can read the data from here. And you know, this line is a slow line. It's a little ADSL. It's like a 2 meg line. It's not even a high functioning line.
Yeah.
And I could read video, I could read data, I could do everything.
Possible. This is the kind of stuff that should flow into the Presidential Commission on 4IR. I actually had an earlier virtual meeting with the 4IR committee of the Southern African German Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we had the chairperson of the Presidential Commission on 4IR, who is also the Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, Professor Tilizi Marwala, addressing us. And the kind of stuff that he was presenting in as far as the role of AI in the context of 4IR and what the type of stuff and recommendations that they've made to the Presidential Commission on 4IR, and then the fact that the President is quite very impressed with what they have submitted. I had goosebumps, when he was presenting that. Little did I know that our talk at the Commander Radio Africa was going to touch on this, because he was quite very adamant that in the medical profession, 4IR is a key. And I think the same applies in the educational profession. So I'm really educated in one day, and I'm glad that happened. So it's very important that you keep to that thought, that idea you have just brought up that was revealed to you as a result of this lockdown, because that is the future, in my view. And I think we need to explore this further and find out how to scarce expertise and professions like yours can be multiplied using the technology. And how can we use technology to rope into specialists like you that are in other countries for the benefit of our country, especially if the country is able to provide the 4IR infrastructure. Because then as one person, like one lecturer, you can reach up to thousands of people.
Absolutely. And for example, the medical profession has been insanely generous, and I have to use that word, throughout lockdown, and they continue to give us free webinars constantly. And they give it, so what happened was, at one point it was probably still in level 5, there was a big international neurological conference in Europe that basically is one of the 2 biggest neurology conferences in the world. And what they decided to do, they decided not to actually cancel their conference.
Yes.
They continued it. They actually had, it was over 4 days.
Yes.
They went ahead and had it, the entire thing via Zoom,
yes.
And they gave it to us for free.
Wow.
For free.
Wow.
12 hours, 15 parallel sessions, 12 hours a day. I binged on my couch.
Wow.
I could not have been able to do it, not this year anyway. I wouldn't have been able to afford it this year. I wouldn't be able to afford the time, and I would never have been able to go to all the meetings because I wouldn't have been able to get there quickly enough.
Wow.
But for 4 solid days, I watched conferences where the guest speakers were the guys who are writing the articles that we are guided by at this minute with overlapping COVID influences.
Wow.
So if that is possible, streamlined, if that is possible now, that would never ever have happened if the situation wasn't the way that it is.
You see
and so
that?
what's happened now is each of those things trigger, okay, so if they can do that, then what about this? If they can do that, what? I mean, I even started to go and see patients in their homes because I couldn't work in my house, in my practice.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I would make a little bit of extra money to pay my staff. Why don't I just go and see the patients in their homes?
I listened very attentively just now as you were talking, and I see you are implying that if there was any expansion outside the physical expansion, which it would be impossible because of resources and the fact that you are very scarce, very few people that have got this expertise, you are identifying a need that could be met through maybe setting up, I almost feel like setting up an institution, but it wouldn't be a physical institution or an academy, but it will be really, in this case, it can only be virtual. And I think if you don't follow technology now, you are going backward anyway. And that could be something that of a 6 months certificate program or 1 year certificate program, targeted at those who will come out with having done their basic degree and specialization, and now we are just actually giving them this type of knowledge that you have to sort of like multiply ourselves. Just one moment. Sort of just multiply ourselves. So that is one implied need I'm picking up, or implied desire I'm picking up from you. The other point you raised, I know you belong into the SA Epilepsy Foundation, but I also feel that inside you there is that social, that social drive or social entrepreneurship drive, that some of these things, because of the poverty of our people, we must be able to do them for free. But I can only imagine that a non-profit making section of some sort of your business where people can contribute without you necessarily using your own resources could also be a very good vehicle. I'm giving you some ideas. That's not the whole idea of the interview, but I will be doing injustice to our conversations if I don't highlight these things, because we are talking to each other, but we are actually talking to the listeners out there, and even many other people who might not even in South Africa, because we have listeners across the globe who might even be interested to reach out to you. So therefore, I'm picking that is coming out clear. And then lastly, I'm picking it up that human capital development is the biggest concern of yours, and I'm talking about now the staff around you that works in this highly specialized environment. They may not become neurophysiologists, but they will need to understand what it takes to support a neurophysiologist unit like yours, to a point that people could look forward to come and work for that type of a situation. Some people will do it because they have brother and sister that are suffering from epilepsy, so they're epilepsy, and then they can relate to the problems that people go through. That did I capture it well?
Absolutely, and I think that I've got a huge fear that something might happen to any of my staff because they feel irreplaceable to me. But I know life doesn't work like that. And I think that you've just hit the nail on the head. I think that I think people will be drawn to what they see when they see that magic. And I had one incident that was, because I have students coming through, and I know we're needing to wrap up, but I have students coming through my practice. often would normally either they've qualified or they're still at school, but I speak to them about my work, and they want that magic that they feel that I've got inside me, that excitement that I have. But what they don't realize is that it's not just me. It comes with so much more and so many more people. And I had one person who went and studied this degree, but was not able to find a team like mine. And I've watched the individual, I can't say that this person is disappointed, but what I'm saying is they're alone and they're dwindling. So one has to be realistic in terms of what you're capable of.
Yes.
But it's like that with anything. And I think that if you draw the people towards you with a common goal, and you look after those people, you make them feel valued and cherished and nurtured and loved, they will love you and they will love the people you love. And those people are the patients, because ultimately, those are the people that are most important. Because that person that's in the bed could be your grandmother, or your sister, or your little brother, or your baby. And I need to know that when I'm not there, my people are treating my patients like they are their family, or my family. And
Wonderful.
that I need, when I walk out of there, I need to know that, otherwise I won't sleep.
Wonderful.
So
that's beautiful. So how do people get hold of you? If there's somebody listening and they really are inspired by your story and they really want to reach out to you, do you have a website, email address, and contact numbers that they can call you at?
Yes, sure. I've got a very, very basic website that I designed that is very, very due for upgrade, but it's www.epilepsy.co.za.
Wow. How did you get that? There was nobody that had taken this. This is beautiful.
It's a miracle. It's another miracle. I Googled it to see who had it. And you know who owned it?
Yes.
Life Healthcare.
Who's that?
Life Healthcare. For some reason or other, Life Healthcare had secured that domain.
Yes.
I don't know why they did it.
Wow.
This is going back 15 years.
Yes.
I just Googled it before I even had it.
Yes.
And when I saw who owned it, Life Healthcare owned it, so they gave it to me.
Wow.
They gave it to use.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We are really grateful for them to have allowed you to use it. Now, it is yours. It is Epilepsy South Africa. It can only become the property of the nation, and you are the caretaker of it. So, very simple, epilepsy.co.za. Email address?
Very easy. info@epilepsy.co.za.
Beautiful, beautiful. And any social media page or...
I don't have anything up and running yet. I've got my LinkedIn profile page. It's just under my name. And
so just let's remind the listeners that if they go to LinkedIn, they will find you as Candice Bottcher, and Bottcher is spelled Bottcher.
Correct.
Yeah, and Candice is Candice.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
that's right.
If they find any other Candice, they must make sure that this Candice is the one that is in Durban in South Africa.
Please, yes, there's a Candice Bottcher. I heard someone say, we heard Candice Bottcher's working and she's a swimsuit model. It's not me.
Yeah.
She's from Cape Town.
Yeah, wonderful.
But it's just it's a very basic info website, but you can contact me via the website. You can contact me directly via email, that comes straight to me, and then via LinkedIn, and then obviously by telephone.
Yes. Do you have the telephone line that, not your private line, but the line that is you use for public? Can you give it?
Yes, of course. It's 031.
Yes.
204 1490.
Just say it again. 031.
204.
Yes.
1490.
1490. And of course, those who are outside South Africa, obviously, will be a +27 31 204 1490.
Correct, yes, please.
Lovely.
And all the information is also on my website.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there any last remark you want to make?
I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I also wanted to just say that if anybody out there knows anybody who has epilepsy that is not controlled, even one seizure a year for some people is too much. Even if you just want to phone me and get advice, anytime, I'm happy. And if I can't take your call, I will return the call. I'm always happy to give advice. I love it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You in the right direction.
Thank you so much. This has been very helpful. I'm sure the listeners will agree with me that it was really very insightful. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Candice Bottcher. She's the owner and the manager of Epilepsy Unit at Life Entabeni Hospital in Durban. I hope you receive the contact details and you will be in touch with her for more information if there is such a need. Once again, my name is Sam Zima. I am the CEO and the Executive Business Coach at Comeza GOC International. You can check our website, www.comeza-goc.com. And of course, you are invited to consider becoming our individual or corporate member of Comeza Friends and Supporters Club, NPO. You can apply online at www.comezaclub.africa. Let's join forces in building and developing our country, the continent, and making the world a better place for us to live in. We thank you for tuning in. We are looking forward to welcoming you at our next broadcast. For now, we say goodbye, take care, and be safe.